Hey everyone, how's it going? Azren, the language nerd here. Hope you're doing very, very well. Currently sitting at the University of Calgary, as you guys can kind of see from the window, a little bit, kind of, sort of. I am here because I was doing some French liaison work for a Quebec football team that recently landed in my city in Calgary for a football tournament. So just with them basically for the morning and the early afternoon, doing some of that French, some of the French liaison stuff. So helping them, yeah, basically working with them and helping them out a little bit. So a lot of fun, very interesting kind of experience. Now, I want to talk about a weird kind of realization that I recently had, which has to do with listening comprehension and a bit of a tip or a strategy to help improve that. And weirdly, also accent and pronunciation. Now, let's start on the pronunciation side. Myself, I used to always think that when it came to good pronunciation, it had to do with the mouth, the muscles of the mouth, all matters of the mouth, aka when someone has a bad accent or bad pronunciation. I used to think it's because they didn't know what to do with their tongue, their lips, their vocal cords, etc. They didn't know what to do with it to be able to pronounce or produce sounds in a foreign language accurately or pronounce them well. And as a result, they mispronounce things and they have an accent. That's what I used to think. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. However, there is a second element in play. And the second element in play, which I've been thinking more about recently, is being able to accurately hear what sounds native speakers are saying. In other words, for example, I was working with a couple of people in an accent reduction class that I'm running, and the two people in the class really struggle to hear the difference between a and e in English. So for example, if I say the word like bag versus beg, or leg versus leg, or like, I don't know, like men versus man, or bed versus bad, like those kinds of differences are really challenging for the people in the class to actually hear. And so what's funny is that because they cannot hear the difference, or not hear it consistently, consistently hear the difference between an and an a, because they can't hear it, when they pronounce it, they mix the two up. So when they say and, maybe they meant to say end, or when they say end, they meant to say and. And native speakers, when we hear them speak, we understand what they say, not because they pronounced it properly, but because we understand what the context of the situation, the context of the sentence. And so I was realizing that, this is an interesting little factor. This is an interesting little phenomenon. And so what I was doing with these people in the accent reduction class is we started to train their ears to be able to hear the difference between and a. And the funniest thing happened. Finally, when they were able to kind of distinguish and accurately be able to tell, did I say end or did I say and? Did I say bend or did I say band? Did I say gem or did I say jam? When they could accurately tell and be like, oh, I can hear which one you're saying, they themselves could pronounce the sounds a heck of a lot more accurately. Because they would go to speak and be like, oh yeah, I saw this jam. Oh no, not jam. That sounds funny. Gem, right? I saw this gem the other day. They'd almost auto-correct themselves because suddenly when they said jam instead of gem, right, their brain would be like, you don't want to say jam. Jam's like that stuff you eat. You're trying to say the other word. And their brain would automatically be like, wait, whoa, what are you doing? You got to say it like that. And even though I hadn't really spent a ton of time teaching like, oh, this is the major, like we spent some time, but not a massive amount of time. We hadn't spent a lot of time on teaching what's happening in the mouth. We didn't spend a lot of time on that. The second they could hear that, oh, and that's the difference. Oh, cool. They were able to pronounce them both a lot better and more accurately. And I was like, oh, interesting. And it made me see that connection of going, oh, if you can hear it, if you fix your ears, to be able to fix your ears sounds kind of funny, but if you fix your ears, you can fix your mouth. AKA, if you can hear the difference between and a, or maybe a French of like u and oo, and you can like hear the differences very, very well, that's gonna help you quite a bit to be able to pronounce them a heck of a lot better. Because when you say it correctly, your brain's gonna be like, yeah, that was right, it sounded right. Or if you say it wrong, your brain's gonna be like, You didn't say that right. You didn't say it right. And so they're definitely, that listening element is a really important one. And of course, it has to go hand in hand with understanding what's happening in the mouth. Like that also is a pretty big and pretty important factor. Last thing I'll say, it's a similar thing, but slightly unrelated. This also is what happens with listening comprehension. Sometimes people struggle with listening comprehension and understanding what others are saying in another language because they haven't trained their ears to hear the sounds of the language properly. And so when they hear the French "u," or they hear like a, I don't know, they hear like an in French, or they hear like a, you know, the tones in Mandarin or whatever, right? When they hear the unfamiliar sounds, their brain can't compute and can't analyze and can't process what you're hearing, and they cannot associate, your brain cannot associate what you heard with a meaning. You just can't do it, right? And so the ear training helps with pronunciation. Yes, absolutely, right? Your ear training also is going to help with your listening comprehension. It's going to help on both fronts. And I think we'll end this video off on this note. You know, when we look at some people who say learn pronunciation first, right? Some people kind of say that when you're learning a language, learn the pronunciation first, make sure you have a good accent, nail that. Well, the one of the logic points behind that theory or that philosophy, that etc., one of the logic points is that, you know, if you're able to pronounce things well, you're probably hearing the sounds well, which is then going to give you excellent or better listening comprehension, which is just going to help you to speak better and communicate better and just kind of enter the language in such a better way overall, and you're just going to be stronger in the language. So it's an interesting logic point, and that's one of the main argument points, which is for the people who are saying pronunciation first, learn that. It's one of the points and kind of one of the logic points that is attached to it. And really weirdly, I think that pronunciation first, maybe it's misclassified. Maybe it should be listening comprehension first. Maybe it should be accurately identify the differences between the various sounds in a foreign language. Maybe you should do that first. Maybe that's almost a better way to say it. Anyway, I'm not sure what we're going to call this video. I feel like we bounced around on a few different interesting topics, but I'm sure I'll find something interesting to name this video. Maybe it'll be like, fix your ears and fix your mouth, or something really weird like that. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your attention. You guys rock, and we will talk later. Bye for now.